Hello, beautiful people, and welcome to the first episode of No Time for Burnout a podcast for high-achieving women who love being productive, who love contributing, helping people, being there for people, making the most out of their day, but who have been doing that for a very long time and are starting to really feel stretched. And maybe it's you, and maybe you're starting to feel like you're burning out, or you're wondering if that's burnout. Well, this podcast is for you to understand where you are on the way to burnout and what to do to never get there. I never burnt out myself because I was able to catch myself. I was lucky enough that I was already into coaching, and my coach flagged with me that it sounded like I was burning out. And I was like, surely not the wellbeing coach. And I was already a wellbeing coach. I was helping people with stress and life purpose. I got really interested in burnout itself, in understanding what it was. I started to realize, oh my gosh, I feel like I might have burnt out when I was experiencing postnatal depression as well, as a similar thing. No energy for being a mom and all those kind of things. And then when I was on the lap of Australia as well, there was just so much to do, to plan. And that'll sound pathetic to some of you. But a lot of people who have done a lap of Australia with young kids will agree with me that there's a lot to do and a lot to plan. All this to say, I got really interested and I did a lot of research and interviews, and I started coaching people on burnout prevention. And all of this led to a model and an approach, which is now approved and endorsed by psychiatrists, GPs, by burnout specialists as well, and people who have experienced burnout in the past. This first episode, I want to dedicate to explaining what burnout truly is, and my model as well, which will help you to establish where you are on the path to burnout and how to get out of trouble. This will be a bit of an overview of all the things that I will be touching on along this podcast. Burnout itself, there is no universal understanding or agreement among researchers about what it is. And it's not a clinical diagnostic like generalized anxiety or depression are. So there's a lot of misunderstanding, and people use burnout a lot to say that they're exhausted or that they're really over a certain thing, like I'm completely burnt out from the gym or from the news. I'm not here to invalidate people saying they're burnt out when they're really exhausted. Though what I want to say is you're not burnt out until you are. So it's to bring hope to people and say, well, there are still things I can do. So let's start with the start. Burnout itself starts with an imbalance between the demands in our life and the resources. We have too much to do, too many people to look after, too much on our to-do list, and not enough time, energy, money, support, not a good enough environment to do those things. That's when we start saying, I'm stretched, I'm at capacity, or I'm burning out. Now, this imbalance, which is typically linked to work, but it can be to our occupation or our situation. So a stay-at-home parent can absolutely feel that imbalance, that they have too much to do and they have no help. And equally with researchers or travelers, they can also feel that imbalance. It's very personal. In the context of this podcast, I'm going to be talking about people who are employed. But if you're not, it will probably resonate as well. This imbalance creates chronic stress. So we're talking about an imbalance that is over the long run. It creates chronic stress. It starts impacting our body, our mind, our emotions, our capacity, and then we burn out. The three main indicators of burnout are, I've got the model there and I'll share it with you soon, the complete exhaustion. We have nothing left to give. So we can't even push through anymore. We're not going to work anymore. Emotional and cognitive impairment. We're completely detached from people. We can't think clearly at all. Some people said they couldn't turn their laptops on. Then the last indicator is physical collapse. Some people said that they collapsed at the airport. They fell on their desk. They couldn't get out of bed. Burnout is very scary. for those people. They've been pushing through for so long and their body and mind completely shut down. So if you've been there or if you are there, I am so sorry that it's happened. I heard it's extremely scary. It's a state that no one wants to be in, and it can take months and even years to recover. My role is to help you never get there or never get there again. I'm going to talk briefly about the 3 zones before burnout, and you might start to recognize yourself in some of those zones with the signs. I'll quickly share my screen for those of you who are watching the video, but otherwise I'll give a link to download it and I'll describe the 3 zones. The first zone is the activation zone, which is when we're starting to feel that imbalance. We're starting to feel stress signals, and that can be physical, emotional, cognitive, or behavioral. Things like having a lot of tension in our body, a bit more pain. It can be things like having headaches, feeling more fatigued than usual, more irritable, having less focus, less energy, and less interest in work. Obviously, those signs can be due to something else, so make sure you consult a qualified medical or health practitioner. If you have all those signals, doesn't necessarily mean it's burnout, but if you know that it's due to an imbalance between what you have to do and the resources you have, that could be the activation zone. If this is addressed with the prevention pillars that I'm going to present after, we can get out of trouble and get out of this activation zone and be well again. Though if we don't do anything or nothing changes in our workplace, then we can fall into the overfunctioning zone. In the overfunctioning zone, we carry the signs and the symptoms of the activation zone. And on top of that, we add the overwork. The overfunctioning zone is a zone where people can stay for a very long time because they're extremely productive. It's actually a badge of honor, and it's praised in the workplace. It'll give you a lot of promotions and a lot of praises in the workplace. Typically, people are in denial when they're in overfunctioning zone. This is where they're on autopilot. They overwork. They've got chronic underlying stress. There is no rest. The most important aspect of the overfunctioning zone is we're always in work mode, whether we're actually working or we are thinking about work. This is where we start to, our family's talking to us and we're not registering what they're saying because we're thinking about, I really need to reply to that email, for example. And this is where we start to have insomnia, and we're also hyper vigilant. So potentially you'll be reading all of the emails. You'll want to be CC'd and everything. You'll want to be across everything. It's a very dangerous zone because most people are in denial, and they cope with the extra work and no rest with a lot of coffee during the day, potentially wine in the evening, and they just surviving on autopilot, but they don't realize it completely right now. Both in the activation zone and overfunctioning zone, this is what we typically call invisible burnout or high functioning burnout. It doesn't really show from the outside. You just look like someone who's really performant, and people might be saying things like, I don't know how you fit it all in. And when you stop, you actually get really uncomfortable. This can go on for a very long time, and some people dip in and out of overfunctioning. They go on holidays and they're able to put their laptop away, but when they come back and full 7 days a week work. If nothing's addressed in the overfunctioning zone, the nervous system in our body and mind will catch up at some stage, and we will fall into the depletion zone. Typically in the depletion zone, we're carrying most of the symptoms of activation and overfunctioning. We're still trying to push through. We're still going to work. We're still taking the kids to their sports, and we're still helping everyone. If we're volunteering, we're still there. Though this is where it starts being more visible. We are really tired. Our relationships might be starting to suffer. There might be conflicts. There's things like we're starting to drop balls, making errors. Maybe we call in sick more often, or maybe we're actually sick more often than usual. And we take a long time to recover because we're still working. So a lot of my clients will feel really bad calling in sick for more than one day. So they will work from home instead so that they don't contaminate people, but they're still working. And then they'll have to go on antibiotics because they've waited too long and their body's not following. And that's also where people start to forget really important things. They can become really cynic about the workplace or their profession or life in general. They can become really negative and they can start to have panic attacks. A lot of my clients don't sleep well, especially on Sunday. Some of them have panic attacks as well on their way to work. This is also typically where we're starting to think about changing job. And this is also where depression and anxiety as clinical diagnostics can come into the picture as well. It's a very heavy place to be. There's still things you can do. You're not burnt out yet. Other models will typically define burnout with the symptoms of the depletion zone. Even the gold standards for a long time was Maslach and Jackson, and they had the emotional exhaustion, depersonalization, and ineffectiveness. These things I found with the market research I've done, the interviews, and also my clients' experience, they're not burnt out yet. And they've admitted that later on in another paper. People are not burnt out yet when they're there. There's a lot of things they can still do. So there's hope, my friends. The other side of the model is the prevention pillars. For those of you who are on camera, you can still see it. It's a bit death by PowerPoint. I do aim to improve the model at some stage. The prevention pillars were designed with hundreds of intervention points. I've just listed all the things my clients were doing, all the things that research was saying that we can do to recover from burnout or to prevent burnout. And I've grouped them into 3 prevention pillars. At any stage, in any zone, you can use those 3 prevention pillars. The first one is awareness. You want to be aware of how you're feeling, what's happening, what's creating the imbalance, what's the external pressure and what's the internal pressure as well. Because a lot of us have really high standards. In the awareness, we bring awareness to this. That's where it's really helpful to work with a coach. The second prevention pillar is restoration. We need to rebalance, to reset our nervous system and our energy. This is where we're going to be talking about self-regulation, rest, taking breaks, having some boundaries with ourselves and with people, starting to delegate, and also taking leave. It can be just long weekends. It can be actually not working weekends, but it can also be extended leave. And the third pillar is lifestyle. And in lifestyle, we're talking about building daily habits and rituals that will maintain our energy and our well-being, essentially. And the goal is always to restore the balance, right? To reduce the demands and improve the resources. So we're more balanced. We don't feel bad. That's a very simplistic expression, but we stop feeling bad about everything we have to do. That's the goal of those 3 pillars. So as a first step today, my friend, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. That was a lot of information. What I invite you to do is go onto my website. If you go to the About tab and the model, or if you just type in sophieanderson.au/AMBP for the Anderson model of burnout prevention, -framework, AMBP-framework, and download the model. You will have the latest version. I'll always update it with the latest version there. And just stick it somewhere where you're going to see it so that you can always say, oh, yes, I'm definitely in an over-functioning stint. What can I do? And then you look to the 3 prevention pillars. Okay, I'm definitely in awareness. You can say, well, I'm definitely putting way too much pressure on myself to start this side business as I'm working full time, or all those volunteering hours. Maybe it's all those volunteering hours that are adding to the demands. We're saying yes to people too much. In the restoration, you can say, yeah, I haven't had a break in such a long time. I'm going to take a long weekend. Or you can say, today I am going to stop every 2 hours and go for a walk around the block. And in lifestyle, you can say, actually, I'm going to have a really healthy lunch. So these are really simple intervention points that you can do. And I believe the more you listen to the podcast and you get familiar with my work, the more it'll be easy for you to just look at the model and go, okay, where am I today? I'm in activation. What's activating me? What's making me stress? Where am I responsible? Restoration. What could I do? I'm going to go to bed earlier tonight. That can be a very simple thing. And lifestyle. What can I do? I'm going to call my girlfriend because she always makes me feel so much better. I hope this was helpful. Please download the model. Let me know what you think and share your feedback. Would love to hear from you. Have a great day.